Disaster, catastrophe, murders, genocide, bullshit, corruption. I came here earlier and it started fucking showing. William.
William, lovely to see you.
Nice to meet you, man.
Julian, Lessons for Life, 24/7. A lot to talk about this weekend, and you told me that you don't tend to follow the news.
No.
And the biggest news story is what happened in New Zealand, but why do you not follow the news?
Well, there's a variety of reasons, and it's not strictly accurate what I said. There's various things that I look for online.
Okay.
It's just definitely not mainstream events.
Okay.
A couple of reasons. One of them, just basic, is that it's generally always negative news. It's generally always disaster, catastrophe, murders, genocide, bullshit, corruption.
Okay.
And the more, as cliched as it is, the more negativity you associate yourself with, the more negative your mindset can get.
Wow, interesting. I presumed that when you said you don't follow the news, you were going to say because it's biased, but it's not to do with bias, it's to do with negativity.
Oh, I would say it's of course biased.
Okay.
Everyone in that kind of arena has their agendas.
Okay, but even if it's true, you don't want to hear it if it's negative.
It's not so much that if it's negative, it's that if I hear about a catastrophe, I have no effect on it.
Okay.
It's a stoic mindset, really. It's why should I want to associate myself with something that I cannot affect, really?
Well, if we find out about these tragedies like what happened in New Zealand, can't we come together, maybe educate people, I don't know, make videos like this? Might we not have an impact on a more positive future if we're aware of it?
It is a good point, for sure. That can definitely manifest. Although I think the main reason why people get involved in commentaries on these topics is to push their own agendas of this is caused by this, it fits my agenda, this is how.
Okay.
And I've got no place for that. But I do agree is that you can of course think about the causes of things and see how you can get solutions to things. But I feel that I know enough of the terrible history of man to not need another example.
Good point. Do you have an agenda yourself or an ideology? Or?
Well, I'm going to say absolutely not.
Okay.
And people may say that's impossible. Well, who knows? But I'm not trying to push my ideas on anybody, especially when I come here. I want to try and ask as best questions as I can without underlying bias as much as I can.
And I've seen you
to get people to think.
I've seen you doing that in many conversations, and it's intrigued me. And I thought, well, does he have a philosophy? Does he have an agenda? You seem to be very.
I have a philosophy.
Okay.
But it's my own.
It's your own. Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know how basic I can make it, just because it's hard to articulate. Is that it's going to be as simple as this. Is that I think everybody needs to find their own spiritual path, their own spiritual way in life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's it, really.
No, that's perfect. And I think someone said to me once, it's akin to buying a suit. Some people buy one off the peg, other people get one measured to be tailored exactly to themselves, and that's what you're doing with your
interesting analogy.
outlook.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this discussion with a good friend of mine about, maybe I'm going to sound arrogant or whatever, I'm not sure, but I'm trying to look at the world and trying to make judgments on it and how I should act, right, based on levels of awareness, because you might notice that sometimes you talk to some people and some things you say might have absolutely no effect. They kind of bounce off, like eyes glaze, and that. I'm not dissing them. I'm saying that I recognize I work in education as well, and
very good.
It's very important for me to try and encourage people to think and be confident in growing their mind. That's very important for me. But I recognize there's different levels of awareness, and you can only have certain levels of conversations with certain people. And I want to figure out how I can advance that, to open people to more possibilities.
Yeah, no, that's a great philosophy to have.
Yeah.
What can I ask? What age group you teach?
I've taught all, man. The youngest children I've taught is about 5 years old, and now I regularly teach adults.
Very good.
Yeah.
And do the adults respond differently because I presume they've chosen to be there as opposed to kids that have been forced
that's an interesting
to be there
one.
by law?
That's an interesting one, yeah, for sure. But most of the, I worked in international schools when I taught younger children mostly. But with adults, usually they're very motivated because they're working hard, they're spending their own money, and they want to learn something to further themselves, further their career or whatever. So they can be very motivated, and children too. You just have to approach it in the right way. You have to make it fun for them, make it challenging and fun. Then it'll be really good.
It is difficult though. I always think that prison and school are the only places where you have to be by law. The law compels you to be there, and if you don't go to school, you have to be homeschooled, tutored. Yeah,
that's interesting. I want to learn more about homeschooling because I've heard. I follow some things in the USA. I've heard that idea is under attack.
Is it?
Homeschooling. They want to try and get everybody into those indoctrination camps.
Yeah, indoctrinate. I mean, you're a man who's worked in education. To what extent is education just teaching children to regurgitate what you've told them? I mean, it sounds like you want to teach people to think, which is something people have to.
Well, I've had that privilege
learn.
because I've worked at institutions that have been rather rich, let's say, and also privately, and private tutoring, private academies, type of things, which it gives you a bit more freedom to do these things. But overall, of course, it's going to be cliched. I hate saying it, but it's designed to make people to give people information that's going to allow them to enter the workforce. And that makes sense in a lot of ways. But it's not education as far as I consider it.
Here's a question for a teacher. From where do we get the word trivial or trivia?
I have no idea.
I believe tri is 3 in Latin.
Yeah.
So the trivia were the 3 arts, acting, painting and drawing, and music.
Oh yeah.
Whereas the quadria were the 4 sciences: biology, chemistry, physics and maths.
Okay, yeah.
So back then, quadria and trivia just referred to the more scientific, literal types of knowledge versus the creative and the self-expressive trivia, the 3. Which nowadays we use the word trivial to mean something not important.
Laughable, yeah.
But why isn't music and art and drama just as important as maths and science and
it's an interesting one.
Biology?
I imagine it's been like the meaning of the word has drifted over time.
Exactly.
Because I think many people really do appreciate the value of these things in their own life. Whether or not it gets economic value is another question. There's economic systems. But anyway, I want to ask you, because what is your channel all about?
Lessons for Life, 24/7. What is it about? The truth is, I don't really know. I just wanted to have conversations like this and get people talking. Coming to Speaker's Corner, it's been a lot about religion, and as we said, the people that buy their clothes off the peg and just are Muslim or are Christian.
Yeah.
But within that, you will always get a broad spectrum of opinion, and it's always interesting to speak to people who are outside those labels, who are just deciding for themselves.
Absolutely. Interesting. Well, I came here today because the previous 2 times at Speaker's Corner, I actually was able to have the conversations that I really wanted to have. I wanted to get into spirituality in the generalist sense. I wanted to go into I talked on another channel about the danger of people putting themselves into groups. The identitarian way of thinking about the world. And it's a great issue for me. I find it seems to cause harm wherever it goes.
Yes, it does.
And that's something that I find very frustrating. For example, there's a number of YouTubers that I follow that they talk about very interesting things and they give really good information, great analysis, but I haven't found a single one that hasn't been an identitarian. Like wanting to bring it right back to it's about my race, it's about my religion, it's about my country. I think you can't make progress like that.
Very true. Even the flat earthers have become like that. It's become a religion. As much as they're meant to be the people that think outside the box and haven't been duped, they start calling people globe heads, and it's just a new club to gravitate around.
It seems to be, unfortunately, a human predependence to action with the forming of tribal groups.
I think it is. There was an experiment where they treated people with blue eyes and brown eyes differently, I think, and immediately it just becomes 2 clans. All you got to do is treat one group better than another, and people will hate each other.
That's right.
Like Germany is about half Catholic, half Protestant, but they've never had a problem because they've always been sort of equal. They haven't been one above the other. But in places like Ireland and in Scotland, where there's been sectarianism, I think, because of a lack of equality, or people have been pitted against each other.
Absolutely.
And lived in fear of each other, and it shouldn't be the way. Definitely.
And that's why I'm trying to, as much as I can, trying to get people to elevate their mindset above the group level. And I'm figuring out ways to do that.
Super. Wow.